Of the want to be very professional, sharing your faith is looked down upon by peers and employers alike. The fear of losing your job and possibly your career weighs heavily on the shoulders of pilots. Many wouldn't risk their job to talk openly about their faith, but there are some ways around it. The aviation industry is known to be very secular because of pride, money, and lust. Pride is a very big issue, but is very rarely talked about. The joke is, how do you know someone's a pilot?
How?
Well, they'll usually let you know very quickly. While that is a joke, it is very serious. The Bible tells us that pride is seen as a root of many other sins and problems, leading to a downfall. Pride is something that I personally have to check myself on a daily basis, because it's very easy, in the future for me to say, look at me, I'm in Europe, I'm in Mexico, wherever, but you're still here working at a job, just behind the screen all day. Or even right now, I'm able to fly during school a lot of times because of my schedule. It'd be very easy for me to, say, look at me flying around to North Carolina or Georgia, while y'all are still here just sitting in school learning about whatever. The second issue is money. While most pilots do get paid very well for their job, which is deserved because of years of hard work in flight school and how much money it takes to be a pilot, in the nature of being a safe pilot, being responsible for all the passengers every day. Making money itself isn't a sin, but the love of money over other things and making it ultimate thing is. Finally, lust is one of the biggest issues when it does come to airline pilots. This has been a problem in the industry since the start. Pilots often bid on layovers in known party cities to party and find romantic partner while on layover. Airlines have known about these issues since the beginning, yet do nothing about it. Most times putting a flight crew in the same hotel time and time again. But how can we evangelize as a pilot? Well, we can do small actions. Small actions could be as simple as just loving the people you fly with and your coworkers. Or it could be they tell people that God led you to be a pilot. Showing your faith through conversation is also a great way to share your faith, such as texting people that you're praying for them in difficult situations, or saying that we're blessed and thankful to have good weather after we fly to our passengers. Something that my instructor does every single time is that he prays with his students before check rides or solo flights, mainly just the big events in their training. He did this for me personally. You can work for a faith-based organization, such as being a missionary pilot. Missionary pilots are one of the best way to be a Christian pilot. Missionary pilots fly small planes to remote and dangerous parts of the world to deliver life-saving supplies to people in need. As well, they carry church missionaries to people who would otherwise never hear about Christianity. Missionary pilots are vital to the church because airplanes are usually the only way to reach these people in remote and dangerous areas of the world. Finally, we can use aviation as a way to show God's glory. One job that shows off God's creation is tour pilots, whose only job is to show off the beauty of the area where they are flying. While most of the tour pilots aren't Christian, just one who isn't shy about his faith can reach a lot of people. Around 10 million people take a scenic helicopter tour per year. By being a Christian pilot, you can impact a lot of people. The uniqueness of being a tour pilot is that you have conversations with your passengers the whole time while you fly. This can be a way to introduce your faith to them and share the gospel. What I've done. I've shown the beauty of God's creation. Using aviation to show God's glory is the easiest by showing off the beauty of His creation. I personally see this the most. As a low-time pilot, I do fly very frequently, and I fly around my friends and family all the time. One thing that they always say is how beautiful the view is. I never had anyone just, it's alright, or wasn't really that good. But this makes it very, very easy to say, how is there not a God? How is the world that we live in and us just an accident? It's an example of having an intelligent creator and that we were put here to share God's glory with other people. Finally, I've helped people in need. One example of what I've done is help after Hurricane Helene. After the storm, planes were one of the only ways to get life-saving supplies and people into North Carolina. There was a big operation at the airport that I fly out of where hundreds of people were helping and donating supplies every day. I personally was on the list of pilots that were able and wanted to fly supplies up to these areas in North Carolina. I also donated items to their cause and helped with the loading of the aircraft whenever I could. For weeks after the storm, there were countless flights taking supplies to people. Near the end of the disaster, they had received so many donated items that they were going to waste. Even after having flight after flight, day after day, for weeks, when the roads opened up, they started to take multiple box trucks up there, and they still have stuff left over to this day. This is an example of Christian caring and how we need to love people. Matthew 22:37-40 says that you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is a great and first commandment. The second commandment is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Finally, I want to leave y'all with this. This is a quote from Captain Joe, who's a YouTuber, but this kind of saying has been in aviation for pretty much forever. It says that a good pilot is always learning. This quote applies to Christianity as a reminder of the Christian journey. The Bible speaks to the importance of spiritual growth and learning. 2 Peter 3:18 says to grow in the grace and knowledge of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Just as a pilot never stops learning, we shall never stop growing in our faith.
Great job, Brady. I got a lot of questions, but I want to open it up to our guests first. If y'all have any comments or questions for Brady, feel free to share those now, if you'd like.
I think he was amazing. I'm a little biased, but I think he did an amazing job. I taught him as a 7th grader, so I have the privilege of seeing how much he's grown since that time. 7th grade, totally different kid, but just the confidence and just seeing his relationship with the Lord grow, it's huge. So I appreciate that.
When did you start working on lessons and all that stuff? Would it have gone back to 7th grade?
Yeah,
And
probably.
we talked about it then.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
probably when I first
That's really
started
cool.
and didn't really get serious into it until about high school because I was always too young.
Got it. So when do you? Well, I'm sorry, I'm getting on to all my questions now. When do you start being able to so I imagine there's a lot of build up to it in terms of before you're actually behind the stick, but when do you actually get in the cockpit? You're actually doing the flying, real flying, quote unquote.
I've been doing that for a couple years. This summer I got my license, so now I'm taking up people whoever wants to get into an airplane with me. So,
So
yeah.
The reason I came to Brady is I used to be a flight attendant for Delta,
cool.
and I just want to affirm, truthfully, everything you said is 100% accurate. And I flew with so many crews where I was the only Christian and felt the challenge of that and the strain of that. And so I just wanted to say, as someone who was in the industry, I think every single aspect of the challenges and the pros of being a Christian in aviation were pretty spot on. So great job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's weird. I was wondering when I read your paper, it was he talked about it. Because I know the stereotype, you see it on TV shows and stuff. The pilots are just kind of the most arrogant. They're not family men, to say it politely. All the affairs, all that stuff, and it was geez, is there any truth to that? So I appreciate that you were able to look at that and be no, it's a thing, and it makes sense, what you were saying, how traveling and getting put up in the same hotel room over and over again, it puts you in some really tough situations. Could you speak to that in terms of how much pressure you feel becoming a pilot? Well, maybe, and also include in there, is commercial piloting where you're planning on going, and then back to what I was asking, what do you see yourself needing to do in terms of preparation for that?
Yeah, I do want to either do that or be a private jet charter for someone. I feel that'd be pretty cool. But I guess what I need to do is just be a Christian first. Just live how He wants us to live.
Yeah.
That would just be a good place to start.
I'm really glad you picked up on the Tim Keller, because I don't know if y'all remember that, having to listen to that sermon or whatever, but that was kind of his whole point was, and by the way, I don't know that we have any other pilots in the room, but all the same wisdom, all the same lessons can be applied, right? You're going into construction, you're going into education, you're going into this, that, or the other, whatever you're going into, be really good at it, because God calls you to, and then be the right kind of person while doing it, because God calls you to, right? Just be the best at the job that you possibly can be, and the rest tends to take care of itself. Anything else, guys, before I open it up? Cause I got like a whole list. Okay, so first of all, I've heard this thing about, something about ripping the back of your shirt off.
Yeah.
Can you explain?
It's true. So
Okay.
when you do your first solo, the tradition is to cut the back of your shirt off, because when aviation first started, they had like the biplanes, and they would sit like the student in front, the teacher behind you, and he would tug on his shirt to tell you when to do something. So that means like you get to do it on your own now.
So you can't tug on a shirt anymore. I knew the thing, I never made, that's the first I've heard the story,
Yeah.
so that makes
Yeah.
sense now. That's cool.
We had to ask too, that like as his parents, as a mom, I had to ask what it meant.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, like when they cut, cause they tell you to wear an old shirt, and I was like, for what? So I mean, but we kept his, it's in his room.
Oh, nice.
Well, actually Eli, your flight instructor keeps the
Yeah, he
bottom
keeps
part.
like the tail, and then I have like the rest of the
And
That's
cut off
really
shirt.
cool.
Yeah.
So he's probably got like a bunch of them then.
Yeah.
That's really cool. A little weird, but that's still cool. So I love that, like, as I was writing it down, you mentioned having a good testimony, having a good, and this is more tips for everybody else as to do their presentation. I'm writing down questions, and as soon as I'm getting done writing them down, Brady's already answered. Same with Reagan yesterday. I'm writing down questions, and then you're answering it in the presentation. That's a good sign. So the question was like, what does it look like to have that good testimony amidst all the stuff you mentioned, like the money, the pride, the lust, like all that stuff. And you mentioned that. You mentioned just like in general, like talking to people, how like God called you, feel like God called you to be a pilot, like the language that you discussed that. And then I'm writing down prayer before you get started, because it's like families that sit down and pray before they eat. There's that public testimony they're trying to have or whatever. And I just wonder, like, and then you mentioned your instructor does that. And I appreciate what you were saying about like trying to be professional and not trying to rub it in people's faces and stuff like that. But is that a thing where you could just pray before you fly? Like, is that, and how big of an impact do you suppose that would be?
Yeah, I guess that'd be a pretty big impact. But when I interviewed him, he said that he's never had anyone like decline that from him.
Yeah.
Like he said that he knows people that were Christians that were about as far away as you could get, but none of them never declined. So it probably impacts it a lot.
Right.
Because when you do that, you're very nervous.
Mm-hmm.
You do that first time.
So it probably helps people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. You mentioned, I really like the connection that you made with all the beauty and the views and all that stuff like that. That's really cool. I don't think I've ever thought much about weather. So I got two questions. One, how big of an impact is weather? Like, I know you gotta learn how to fly through it and whatnot, but it seems like one of those fields where, back in the day, farmers, if it didn't rain, they weren't eating. They were so dependent on weather. If it flooded, they might not be eating. They were so dependent on weather, and therefore praying to have a good day, like relying on God for good weather, is just something that most of us don't have to worry about. Right? I don't really have to worry much with my job, my well-being, whether or not God's going to provide good weather. Can you talk to that as a pilot? Can you talk about like the only person in charge of this storm out here? Nobody's got control over that except for God.
Yeah.
So like, can you speak to that in terms of like how that plays into the way you view flying?
Yeah. For me right now, I can't fly through clouds or any weather like that, so I can only fly when it's a good day. So whenever we do get it, especially in the summer when it's always raining, it's a very good thing. I mean, very, very important, very dangerous if you get caught up in the wrong things.
Right. And I suppose it's one of those where, I'm sure you hear about this happening a lot, where flights have to get canceled or land somewhere you didn't expect to or whatever, just because, weather's unpredictable, right? Yeah.
Very serious. Some guy in Anderson was flying into Anderson and got caught in clouds and ended up crashing. Yeah. So it's one of the more serious things that you learn about.
Sure. Classmates, are there anything for Brady? Questions, comments? Sam?
If you just out of curiosity, if you go into more detail about like in North Carolina, like the donations and stuff, and resources over to North Carolina. How was that experience?
So I never actually got to fly into North Carolina because I'm pretty inexperienced, so I was very on the bottom of the list. But yeah, they had flights with pretty much any type of plane that you could think of going up there and taking supplies. And then I did get to fly up there a couple weeks after the storm just for training, and it was you could tell that something very bad had happened up there. So I mean, it was very meaningful for a lot of people.
Anything else? Garrett?
Do you ever get nervous when you're on the plane? Because I always take like international flight, and I get nervous every single time when I go up.
Not really. The first time I ever flew by myself was pretty nervous. I was really nervous, and then when I went to go get my license, I have to fly with an examiner, so I was pretty nervous there. But I mean, other than that, not really.
Liv?
Can I compliment the shirt because it has airplanes on it? It's pretty cool.
Very
It's
good.
pretty cool.
It's dogs.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
I thought I saw ducks.
Yeah.
I don't know, your side's better than mine.
Here it does.
But they're flying either way.
They're flying.
They're flying either way, so.
Don't fly.
So-
I was gonna ask, as far as, obviously it's a different experience, but as far as just the process, how would you compare learning to drive a car to learning to fly?
It's way more in depth. I think when I went and got my license, I had 80 hours flying time, plus, I mean, however much on the ground that I've done learning about laws, regulations, weather, systems on the airplane, just about anything. So it's way more in depth.
And just one more question for me. How did you view how flying would be versus how was it when you actually learned about it?
I don't know. I thought it was always I guess I thought it was really cool, cause you get a great opportunity to do something that not a lot of people get to do. It's really special to get to be able to do that, every day.
So, kind of two things. How many hours do you have now, as of right now, after you took your exam and stuff, in flying?
I haven't counted. I would guess 130 to 150.
And what do you want to, I guess, do? You want to be an airline pilot, or?
That, or I want to fly private jets for people.
And do you need, is there a certain, I guess, amount of hours you need to get there?
So airlines only hire you when you get 1,500 hours. So got a lot to do till then.
So explain that a little, because I've heard, a lot of this kind of goes into another question that I've got for you. The question is, are you planning on being an instructor? And the reason it comes up there because it seems like a lot of pilots, in order to get to the commercial level, in order to get those, get all their hours in, they'll then go back and become instructors so that they can, because, right, doesn't the,
Yeah.
With the person you're instructing gets the hour, but you as the instructor gets those hours as well, right?
Yeah,
Explain
exactly.
a little bit more?
Yeah, so I do plan on doing that. You have to be 18 to be an instructor and get your commercial rating, which allows you to get paid and hired. So hopefully I do all that this summer when I turn 18, and then instruct with the guy that I did the interview with in Anderson, and build 1,500 hours that way. Because you get all the hours, and then you don't have to pay for them. You actually get paid for them, which is way better.
Right. And when you say pay for them, you're paying fuel, you're paying, what's
You
the
pay
cost
for
there?
the aircraft rental. So the school or whoever you rent it from pays for the gas and maintenance and all of that, and you just pay a flat hourly rate.
Cool. Sam?
Yeah, so I did say it was the last question, but I didn't word it well. I guess a better way to word it was, how did you expect flying to be before, and then how was it actually?
I don't really know. I don't really know what I expected getting into it. I mean, I just knew that I feel like I would like it a lot, and I do. So. I don't know.
Anything else? All right, Brady, thank you very much.